Okay, guys, how we doing? Sam here with you. It's the Wednesday, the 1st of May. So we look at crypto today. You guys saw the poll results. So Litecoin way out in front, right? Nothing else even close. So, I guess I understand why. It hasn't been that long. I mean, we looked at it about a week ago. So just, quick review here. So from this last pivot before we head down, getting on that, looks like we ran into the 50 here. So, of course, that algorithm is going to have a target way down here. Well, there's targets below zero, right? So, so that's not going to get its target, yet we know why it bumps into that there. So now you can see, while we're not quite to the 50 here, we've got a bit of a fib fight here between 50s. So this is the 8-hour, and I should mention I'm on Coinbase here. So let's take this off here, since we know that can't get to, we can recognize what we bump into there, knowing that it can't actually get to target. So I think we're fairly solid on the Elliott count coming off the low. We've got a good solid contender for an impulsive 1, and now we're correcting that. So let me go down. Let's try the 2-hour here. Now when we looked at this last, and there's ways to complicate this count. Yeah, we can probably work it into a WXY, but I think in the interest of just kind of simplifying here, right? If this count is going to hold up here, I think in the broadest context, we've got some sort of a 3-wave correction being implied here. Now, as to whether we come out of this yet, it remains to be seen. So you can see, obviously, we don't quite make it. Oh, let me get visible range here to include the low. We don't quite make it to the 50 yet. Let's get this here so we can just see what we've got here. So note this big hole we have right here. Do you see that in the volume? Well, let's get that. Try that again right there. All right. So do you see this hole we have on the side? If not, draw it up on your chart. So we have just no market acceptance here. So we come down into it here. We just put a toe into it, and then it kicks right out. So could that be the pivot? Well, yeah, it sure could be. Right? If it's going to come back down here, we know there's going to be, well, we can just look at it, right? So we can see the support will kick in here. Not only will we have the 50, but we'll have some of this structure. So, I'm not absolutely convinced we have a hard pivot here, but if let's go to the 30-minute and take a look at it. So here's what I'm seeing here. So if this is, it's kind of a question mark here, since the structure here looks so good, like that's a 3. Thus, we can probably work this as a, we can probably go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or A, B, C, X, A, B, C. There's a number of different ways we could count this here. But here's what I noticed here. So first question, right? Always, are we technical? So here's the 50, we get second target to the tick, and then it looks like that keeps going. So if I use the last technical pivot right here, so here's the 50, here's first target. Now it looks like perhaps a front run on second target as we avoid going into that. You see it here, this area where there's no support there. We don't get down into it. We go right to the edge of the volume profile, and then we get this reaction. Now coming out of that, so we know we're fairly technical coming down. But so again, if I can, I want to simplify. So I've got a contender here for my pivot. Now coming off of that, and note I'm on a 30-minute, so I'm not going to go down too much below that. So is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Looks like it's a contender here. And I do notice this. So if this is my 2 here, get right on that low up to this pivot. Right on it. So we've just tagged, well, here with regards to visible range here, we've just tagged the 50 and the point of control Vegas wave just underneath. Looks like that could have held it. So now you come back here and you think, oh shit, is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into the 1, 2, pretty good looking 3 here. So you can see the subdivision. Come here. Let's change this. Let's go to white. So from that, within this, I can get a 1, 2, 3, looks like 4, 5. Now, of course, that's way too big. Let's get down here. So it looks like I can get that separated here. So it looks like I can get a nice clean impulse here in my third. So It's a little skinny there, but the 2 seems to be holding here, so it's technical. So it looks like I've got a reasonable 4 here. Now, if this goes up and we get that target here, now we're going to feel a lot better about this being the potential pivot low here. Now, note here, so here's the 50 down here. So it's not, that crazy that we're not going to make the 50. Of course, that's the high probability zone, but we could just be running into, as you saw, there were technical pivots along the way. So this could be just this. So here's the 50. We're going to get a little cushion to get through it, or is it here as we were looking at it earlier, and we're going to just a front run on the second? Hard to say, right? But this, so that note who we've just run into is that we're back to the 50 from that pivot, but of course we'd be looking at it. Come here. From that low, so from this pivot right here, we've just broken the 65. Now that's not our all the way back, but that was a technical pivot. So that's not without some degree of significance. Of course, you got to keep going back. So we'd go up to this one. See what we hit there. Well, now we're to and through the 50. So this is going to be interesting to see if we've got the legs up here. Now look where that target is as it relates to this last pivot. So the proposed B wave high here. All right, so just taking this entire move as we've come down, there's the 50, there's our target that would give this the potential to be now a 1. So if that's going to go 1, we'd be looking for 2 down here, and then 3, 4, 5, all still yet to come. Let's get that degree up. Go micro, and what have I not used? We'll go green here. So we've got this is a reasonable target here. Now this is kind of a conundrum here. So you're anticipating both, if this is going to play out, we're going to get the impulse here. That's a reasonable target both for our 1. We're also going to run into what likely there'll be software here to kick in to sell that. So with that established, now I don't have this, right? So just take note. So if we're going to come all the way back, then we're looking right here where we have, so here's our point of control at the 50. So that if we're going to go up and get that, then I think that looks better as the next opportunity to be looking for a new long, right in this, looking for something like that to come out of here. So 2 thoughts. If you're very aggressive, you can take the long. Well, you're a little late to the party, but what are we talking about? 71. You're not shit. What's a buck and a half, almost $2 difference. So the problem here is that if that's your target, the risk reward is, maybe you can squeeze out 3 to 1 there. That's about as much as if you're gonna. Where's your stop gonna be, right? So you have to put your stop under this pivot to get 3 to 1. So it may be that. So if you're watching this and you just said, okay, I'm gonna put the pivot, I'm gonna put the stop under the 50. Well, you can't even get 2 to 1. So now you come up there barely 2 to 1. If you're a buyer here, now if you were a buyer at the 50, it was a little better here. So you had 5 to 1 there. So I think you're probably a little late unless you're going to get another little pullback here, which since we tagged the 50, you'd rather not see another pullback. What we want to see is strength to get us up to that target here. To take note here, let me get the full. So if this is my 2, so the target is sitting right on top of that 65. So I'm inclined to say, let's let this complete. Then we feel better about this as our significant pivot here that we're working from. So we'd have a 1, 2. I'm going to feel a whole lot better about the buy here in this range if I can get more comfortable with this as a completed impulse. Now, note what also has happened here. We had this nice channel, so it's very common if we're going to get a break through a channel to come back and then test the lower edge of it here and see how strong is that support. We can see it's just you can think of it as just trend line support. So the fact that we come down here, tag the 50, the point of control, and we have a little reaction. Now it's too soon to say, okay, we're off to the races. We are definitely going up to get that. What are we up there at 76? That's definitely happening. Too soon for that. But I think if we do get that, then anticipating the retrace, and of course, now keep in mind, guys, nothing says we have to stop here. For all I know, we just don't know. But if you've got to lay out some sort of a roadmap here, so you have some indication of an expectation. So you're not just trading this going, oh, well, I hope it keeps going. I like it here, and was that a 50? I hope it just keeps going to 4th, 5th, 6th target. Right? You got to be realistic about what you can get out of that. So we're still, this is a pretty, we get down to 64 and change here with a high was 82. I mean, that's a pretty good sell-off we just went through. we get up here? No, pardon me. High was just shy of 100. All right, so that's a pretty massive sell-off here all the way back to 64. So I'd feel better about the buy if I know I've got a completed impulse here. It sort of eliminates some of the possible complexity to, well, eliminate, that's the wrong word. It reduces some of the probable alternates that would be coming out of this on the assumption that there's more complexity to this correction. If I can get a solid impulse here, I'm less concerned about that. I can be more aggressive here. So I'd likely start at the 50 and have a second load at the golden zone if I'm going to get that kind of a move. Because now I'm anticipating that this one, all right, if I'm going to get a third, I'm looking for that move right there. Here, 4. Maybe we get our 5 up here. So the larger degree. So let's see, actually I'm off here. So if I get this, it would be even higher. There would be your target. So 85, call it 80. Well, it's just round. Let's call it 86. So if, again, I don't have this, but if I get this kind of a turn here on this completion, that's one to go for. Right now, that's some very good looking risk reward here. So even if I pull this up here, put it right in our hot box here between the 50 and the 618, right where we're looking for it. Now I can see 6, 7, maybe even 8 to 1, depending on where my fill is, or even a split fill. What do we get there? So if I I got to use something. So let's use a split fill. Oh, give it a little room under the 65. There's 11 to 1. I mean, that's worth waiting for. Yeah, sure, I understand, right? So you risk the thing running away, right? This thing could just run away. You have the potential for that, but does that seem likely here given all of this? Right? It's possible, it's definitely possible. Now the other thing we'll have is if we're going to go up and get that. So let me put that back in context. So if we're going to get that, okay. So of course, we have the potential now if this holds here from this pivot. Now again, I don't have this pivot, but potentially a golden corner sets up, right? If not, it'll just be a corner here at the 50. I love them if I can get them at the golden zone here because the risk profile is so good. Right? You can be so tight on the stop. So something like that, there's 11 to 1 roughly. So it has to. We don't have this yet, but boy, is that a sexy trade, just waiting, right? It's all just teed up. Now, is it going to do this? Well, shit, we don't know, right? Obviously, right? There's no way to know, but it is kind of interesting. It's right, that's right within your expectation. So I think I don't want to chase it here, but I think waiting for that makes sense. So I'm going to let that play. For me, this would be an add here. So I'm going to let that play and then look to be an add here in this, if we get this retrace right in that zone between 72 and let's call it 70 and a half. That's what I think is worth waiting for. All right, guys, there you go. Okay, back in a minute.